All right, I guess we'll get rolling here. It's 9:30 on Saturday morning, and good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Judd Allen. I am the CEO and founder of J. Allen Financial. I'm also a financial planner and CDFA candidate, and your second Saturday leader here in Birmingham, Michigan, and the host of today's workshop. My co-host today is Kimberly Laura. She hails out of the Jersey Shore area in Asbury Park, the home of Bruce Springsteen. So keep an eye out when the movie comes out. You'll have some familiarity there. But she is a licensed professional counselor and certified divorce coach. She runs her own Blossom Coaching LLC. And Kim and I met through some networking events, and we got to talking. And since I do these every single Saturday of every second Saturday of every month, I really liked what Kim was doing and really the mission behind Blossom Coaching. I jumped at the opportunity to have her on as a co-host today. Kim, if you want to say a few words of welcome, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, Judd, and thank you for Second Saturday for having me. As Judd said, I'm Kim Laura. Good morning. I'm both a licensed professional counselor and a certified divorce coach, and more importantly, I have walked the path of divorce myself, and I know how overwhelming and lonely it could feel. So you are in the right place if you are feeling overwhelmed.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. Also, there is another panelist here with us today, Andrea Widener. She is actually my financial planning associate, and she is going to be our moderator for today's session. Any Q&A, she's going to compile and manage all that. Any technical difficulties, we don't have, it seems we don't have the normal chat box you would see on your typical Zoom meetings. There is a Q&A in there, and Andrea is going to be monitoring that and just making sure everything runs nice and smoothly for us. And we're certainly going to open things up at the end to address the questions. And if we run out of time, Kim and I will be happy to hang out for a little bit longer to address those. Andrea is going to keep us moving today. Andrea, I just want to highlight real quick, she's a recent graduate of Oakland University with her degree in wealth management. She's been with our group now for, I believe, a little over a year. She started as an intern and recently passed her Series 7, and now she's on her way to her 66. Super excited to have her on board. A couple of other things just before we really get rolling into the content here. We just have two simple agreements for the workshop today that we would just like everybody to follow along with and respect. And that is just protecting everybody's privacy, given the nature of the topic today. This can be a pretty private matter. First things first, what you see here, who you see here, what you hear here, what you say here stays here. Okay. And that is, again, just to protect everybody's privacy. And the second thing is that while I am recording the presentation today, because everybody will get a replay of this, also we have to satisfy some compliance requirements. We just ask that nobody records with an iPhone or something like that, bits and pieces of it. You will be provided with a replay of everything today within the next couple of days. And then lastly, surveys tell us that for online seminars, 1 hour is the optimal time frame. That's what we've carved out today. But like I said, if we run up against that time frame, then Kim and I will certainly stick around and address any questions. Without further ado, welcome and good morning and happy Saturday to everybody. I hope everybody's doing well, and we're so happy that you're with us today and you've taken the time on a Saturday morning to be here. We find that, again, given the topic, this is a great time to do it. Second Saturday, the name is there for a reason. And Second Saturday is a divorce workshop series that has started about 30 years ago by two women in the financial service industry that really realized the need for educating those going through divorce about all the financial, emotional, and legal issues, okay, that surround divorce. Nowadays, there's well over 100 Second Saturday workshops going on every month, just like there are today. There's a lot of them around the country going on this morning as well, right alongside us. But most of our workshops are done virtually. I am located in Birmingham, Michigan, which is 45 minutes north of Detroit or so. We say that we're Detroit-ish, but we are in Birmingham, Michigan, and I host I host a workshop second Saturday of every single month, with 2 being virtual, and then that middle month in the quarter we do an in-person workshop. So anybody here in that Detroit area, Oakland County, Macomb County, anywhere in those general areas, we do host them locally here at the Baldwin Library in downtown Birmingham. And in those workshops, we go into much greater depth of all those different aspects of the divorce process. But given that today we're online, we're gonna stick to the hours. The main goal here, though, with professionals, the reason why I like connecting with professionals like Kim and having them on here, because we all share the same mission and we all really want to change what it means to divorce in America. And second Saturday, and all of the leaders and the partners, we're here to empower those, and so they can make the most educated decision when it comes to themselves and their families going through this process. I just want to say that this is something that you do not have to do alone. That's for sure. So wherever you're watching this from, most likely there is a second Saturday workshop near you, or at least a leader near you that can really dive in and help you surrounding some of the divorce stuff that goes on your respective states. But secondsaturday.com, my website, jallenfinancial.com, Kim's website, Blossom Coaching, countless materials there and resources, blogs, articles, videos. Everything is there to help you along and assist you in making this process that can answer many of those questions that we all have. I am a product of it as well. I went through my own about 10 years ago. I didn't know about a second Saturday workshop, so I want to dive in and I want to pass along to everybody else here what the big value is here. I want to go through just the overview of divorce. And then Kim is going to take over and she's going to dive really deep. She's got some amazing content for you today, some handouts and things that we'll get out to you later, but she's going to dive into really the emotional sides of things. So, but there's a lot of issues to sort out when going through a divorce. There is, first and foremost, the kids, if you have them. There's alimony, there's child support, there's property division, there's the house, there's retirement accounts. And then how are we going to figure and sort all this sort of stuff out, right? There's different ways that you can go through the divorce process. Now, typically on TV or the headlines or social media, we see these really big high profile divorce cases and they're battling it out in court and this, that, and the other thing. And then that may not be your best option. First and foremost, it's very costly, both from a financial aspect and an emotional upheaval aspect of it. And at the end of the day, the decisions are left to a judge who just may not really know you and your family, that well. You could go a little bit less expensive route and look at something like mediation, where you and your spouse are in a room with a professional, typically an attorney who's trained in mediation, and then you all work together as a solution to come up with a solution. That's called mediation. No judges, no courtrooms, nothing like that. If you're uncomfortable without having your own attorney sit by your side, then there's a relatively new process called collaborative divorce. Okay. And a collaborative divorce is where pretty much you get the room full of all the professionals. You have your attorney, spouse as their attorney. There's a financial professional in the room who has prepared a synopsis of your finances and different outcomes and things like that. And then you'll typically have somebody in there like a therapist of some kind, just to keep everybody cool and keep things moving right along through the process. A collaborative divorce is a great option to get everybody in the room and all on the same page. And there again, less costly than going all the way to litigation. Very few divorce cases really go to litigation. I believe a small percentage of them actually make it that far. Then there's the last one. You could totally do it yourself. You and your spouse can figure it all out online, do a form online, hire a paralegal to just drop the papers and make it official. But let's face it, if you're able to work things out that well and sort it all out, chances are you're probably not going through a divorce. There are other very peaceful, less cost, more cost-effective ways, more peaceful ways of going through the divorce process. Okay. All right. Second issue is once we've determined how we're going to go about this, we got to talk about the kids if they're involved. Okay. When we talk about the kids, this is going to be the mindset for really most parents. It's usually the kids and the money. And there's really two types. Each state is going to be different, but there are two types of custody that we talk about. Now, both of you as parents are going to have you're going to share the right to be involved in making decisions for the well-being of your kids, and that is what we call legal custody. Okay. Also, they're going to alternate going back and forth to your homes, things like that. That is called the physical custody. So the laws in each state are different, but most of the laws in every state when it comes to custody are written to promote each parent maintaining a meaningful relationship with their children. So to fulfill that goal, physical custody might be shared 50-50, at least for older children, with adequate child support being paid in there. The children don't experience a major shift in lifestyle and things like that as they go back and forth to the different homes. But there again, there are some other things that need to be discussed when it comes to custody and child support and things like that. Are those things that the support guidelines don't cover, like extracurricular school activities and things like that. Basically, every state looks at child support as what the need is there, the payer's ability to pay it, and things like that. So now child support can be paid all the way until the child graduates high school, or in some cases, it may be paid all the way through when the children graduate to college. But if you have children and you're going through this, definitely encourage you again to go Second Saturday website, Blossom Coaching, my website, plenty of articles, plenty of blogs, case studies, a whole 9 yards that will lead to some insight as to what may be the best scenario for their kids. I can tell you personal experience going through my own divorce, it was all about our kids. We had three boys, and it was all about them, and attorneys made sure that, and the courts made sure that kids are really taken care of. But let's talk about alimony for a second. Okay. Alimony, which is sometimes called spousal support or spousal maintenance, is typically another issue in divorces. Many cases where one spouse was the primary breadwinner and the other spouse had stayed home, there's most likely going to be some alimony needed there. But every state looks at alimony a little bit differently, looking at first and foremost the ability for the spouse receiving the alimony to go out there into the workforce and get a job and things like that. Sometimes alimony will be paid long enough just for that spouse to get some training and find a new career or something like that. The good news is that the person who is paying, the spouse that is paying the alimony, it's not tax deductible, and the person receiving it, it's not taxed to them whatsoever. And that has been pretty much the law post 2019 divorces. So in terms of the money stuff and all that and income, alimony is not tax deductible, nor is it taxable to the person receiving it. But again, every state is going to be a little bit different. They definitely look at earning capabilities, things like that, throughout the length of the marriage and what have you to determine that alimony. All right. Let's talk about property division. Okay. Now, all property that the two of you own can be divided into two categories: marital property and separate property. Okay. And in most states, the separate property belongs to the spouse who brought it into the marriage. Okay. Or received it as a gift or an inheritance during the marriage. Okay. And in your state, marital property may be called community property as well. All right. Any marital property is anything that happened during the marriage. For example, a spouse brings in a 401k plan or something like that into the marriage to make the contributions, things like that. Those contributions, everything would become marital property. Or they inherit a home or something like that, but they use marital assets to make improvements on the home. It becomes the marital property. But everything, all marital property, it all must be dealt with and divided. Real estate, retirement accounts, businesses, personal property, and then, of course, any debt that was incurred during the marriage as well. Okay. Excuse me. All of these are very important. And over the years, many of us divorce professionals really see the two biggest things in there being the real estate, excuse me, and of course the retirement accounts. Okay. What do we do with this house? Who's going to stay? Who's going to keep it? What the heck do we do with this? The house is a really big decision. Do we want to keep it? Does one spouse want to live in it to keep the lifestyle of the kids normal? If I keep the house and buy my spouse out, what's that look like? Should they buy me out? Do we sell it all together? Or do we burn the thing to the ground and collect the insurance proceeds? Kidding on that part. Don't go do that. But those are all decisions that you are going to have to consider when keeping the home. Okay. There's many ways to keep the home, to divide the home, but this is going to be a pretty major decision. Now, let's talk about taxes on selling the home. Okay. What if there's capital gains on the sale? This is one thing that a lot of times is completely forgotten about, that when there's the sale of the home and later on the IRS comes knocking and say you might owe us some money. As it stands right now, any individual can exclude up to $250,000 of gain and $500,000 if the house was owned jointly. So what that simply means is that if it was owned jointly, the first $500,000, 500 grand is not going to be taxed. Anything over and above that is going to be taxed. And if it's just on an individual basis, each person can, the first $250,000 will not be taxed. Anything over and above that would be subject to tax. Okay. The other consideration is, can you afford the home? Or the utility bills sky high? Or the property taxes sky high? The association dues expensive? Does the home need work? Does it need any repairs? Does it have any deferred maintenance that needs to be done on it? Does it need a new roof in 2 years and a sump pump? The list goes on. So these are all things that have to be taken into consideration, okay, when deciding what to do with the home. Can you afford it? That's really the big question. And if you're buying your spouse out or something like that, or you have to give up something in order to buy them out, what is life going to be like not having those assets? You can look at a change in mortgage rates. If you have to remortgage the place now, can you get a proof of the mortgage? So many factors go into when deciding what to do with a family home. And I'm sure Kim's going to probably highlight something about it, but I'm sure this is probably one of the biggest things that can cause some of the most emotional upheaval in couples going through divorce. Okay. Let's talk about the retirement assets. Okay. The retirement assets being the second biggest one. And I will talk about Social Security for a second. If you've been married for at least 10 years and you become of retirement age, then you would be eligible to collect on your divorced spouse's benefits. And that amount is up to about 50% of what they would receive. Now, you don't get that heaped on top of yours. You're going to get the greater of the two. Okay. Now, if you remarry and you're of retirement age, you are now eligible to collect divorce spouse benefits based upon your new spouse and no longer on your formal spouse. Okay. The key is, if you're going to remarry, make sure you remarry up and don't go down on that. Okay. And because those benefits now are subject to 100%. If that spouse dies, then those divorce spouse benefits are now up to 100% of what they would have received if they had lived. Okay. Let's talk about retirement accounts. All right. This is my bread and butter. I have been a financial planner, wealth manager for 21 years, and I have seen people go through divorce here and there, obviously went through my own, but this is my area when it comes to everything with a dollar sign in front of it, the retirement plans being really our biggest thing that we have to divide up and so forth. Now, retirement plans are going to require what they call, the fancy term for it is the qualified domestic relations order. It sounds so official. We call it a quadro. Okay. And what a quadro is, it's a document signed by the judge that is passed on to the plan administrator and basically tells the plan administrator how to chop everything up and what your portion is and what to do with it. Okay. Now, this differs. This would be for like 401k plans and defined benefit plans such as pension plans, finding the present value, future value, all that kind of stuff. That's what a quadro will do. IRA accounts, on the other hand, not to be confused with 401ks, they are different. IRA accounts usually don't require a quadro. You basically decide how the IRAs are going to be divided up, and then you simply tell the IRA custodian what needs to happen, and the IRA custodian will act on those instructions. And most people just take IRA money and they put it in their own IRA, and then that way it's considered direct rollover. There are no taxes or penalties to do that whatsoever. So you can preserve the assets and keep them in their tax deferred status. But obviously, there's no need to really divide up the retirement plans if both spouses have their own. We have seen that where both spouses work for, say, a Ford Motor Company or something like that, and have their own pension, their own 401k, things like that. And there's really no need to slice all that up. Okay. All right. Now, that pretty much does it for me. That is the overview of divorce. I really hope that gave you a good understanding of really the three things to really consider. How are we going to go about it? Which process seems to be the best for us? And talking about the children, support, alimony, things like that. And then, of course, property division. What is ours? What is mine? How do we divide all this sort of stuff up? So I hope that gave you a really good overview. I just want to say this last thing. Divorce is a very challenging time to go through in life. And we all know this. All the Second Saturday leaders know this. The professionals out there, Kim, know this. And we're all here to support you. And you do not have to do this alone. You really don't. So I wish you well. I wish you all well in your journey. And without further ado, I'm going to be quiet now and I'm going to hand things over to Kim.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we switched over screen sharing. Yes, like Judd said, divorce is legal, financial, and emotional. But what I find is the emotional journey is often what makes or breaks your recovery from divorce. So today I want to talk to you about the emotional side of divorce, which often gets overlooked, but it's where the healing really starts to begin. Divorce isn't just a legal event. It's really the death of a dream. And it's the dream of how life should have been, how you imagined life to be. So, whether you're the one who was left or you're the one that did do the leaving, both paths are painful. Just like any loss, divorce brings grief. A quick summary of the stages of divorce style. So, the first stage of divorce grief is shock, and that is this can't be happening. Then comes denial. So, with denial and divorce, we start to think things like maybe we can still fix this. With anger, that stage, you might be thinking, how could they do this? How could they have been so terrible to me? With bargaining, that comes out as if I just do this, then maybe they'll stay. Next, number five, sadness. And that's really coming to the conclusion that this is really over. Number six is ambivalence. Some days you're okay, some days you're not okay. And then the seventh stage is acceptance, where you're starting to see a new chapter. And it seems when you're in the muck of it that you might not ever get to the point where you could start to see a new chapter, but it does come. Take a moment just to ask yourself, what stage are you in now? And there's no right or wrong answer, but awareness is really the first step towards healing. Remember that grief is not linear and you might go back and forth in the different stages, and that is completely normal. Now that we understand that divorce is a grieving process, let's look and see and talk a little bit about how divorce affects every major area of your life. And Judd touched on this with houses and dividing assets and child custody and child support. So there's a lot of things. So divorce does really impact every area: family, emotions, money, social circles. And you may feel like your world is falling apart. And in many ways, it really is falling apart, but it's also being rebuilt. So it's important to remember that you are not broken, you're becoming. And with the right support and information, this rebuilding process is so much easier. So now I want you to think about what's the one area. So it could be emotional, financial, family that feels hardest for you right now. So take a minute to just think about that. And this awareness is what's going to help you seek the right support. So if it's financial, you can speak to somebody like Judd. If it's emotional, you could speak to somebody like me. The best way to ease the stress is to surround yourself with the right team and the right tools. I can't see, so I don't know if we're on the next slide for divorce strategies. This is about building your support team. As we keep reiterating, divorce is really big and it's too big to do alone. So you need a team, right? You need legal team, financial team, and a team to help you emotionally. So all of these people together create your support team. And these people and these tools, the support is going to really help you make clear-headed decisions rather than those based on fear, because we know that there's a lot of fear in divorce. So a divorce coach, somebody like me, what I help do is to help you find clarity in your thoughts and feelings. Then that leads to confidence when you are making these big decisions, like Judd was talking about, and courage to really move forward so that you're not just surviving, but you are rebuilding. Here are some tips from a divorce coach. It's really important to create structure for yourself. Keep organized. So get a notebook or a binder for all of your divorce materials so that they are organized in just one place. Keep a journal for recording your thoughts and your emotions. This is really helpful, and it also helps you see how you're growing and progressing. Don't respond to anger, and it's important to pause before picking up the phone or hitting send for a text or an email, and focus on being proactive and not reactive. So stay present and focus on the one thing that you could do today to help you move forward. And that actually really all adds up. So how many of you have written a text or an email in anger and later wished that you hadn't sent it? I know I have for sure. So if this happens, take a breath, step away, and ask yourself, does this align with the person that I want to become? Is this authentic to the best version of me and the person who I am striving to become? Because we know that anger is so powerful, but we also know that we say things that we later regret. So, speaking of emotions, one of the hardest parts of divorce is helping your children to feel safe through all of this. So, we could go to the new slide. And I know that Judd had mentioned this too. The children are our world. And when our world is being turned upside down through divorce, it's a really hard combination. Children really need love and reassurance, not the details of your conflict with their parent. It's important to remember that you're not divorcing your children. They need both parents to feel safe and loved. A good tip is to speak with honesty and not blame, and reassure them that they are not the cause of your divorce. Some age appropriate guidance when talking to kids about divorce and just while you're going through divorce. For young kids, keep it simple and loving. And for teenagers or older kids, involve them, but don't burden them with the details. So I'm often asked, what are some of the biggest mistakes that parents make during divorce and how to protect your kids, like what not to do? So we know that divorce brings out such strong emotions, and even the most loving of parents can lose perspective in the storm of divorce. So it's important to remember that children experience divorce differently. They don't have the same emotional tools or the context, and they can really internalize adult behavior in really painful ways. So, the number one thing is don't use kids as messengers or spies. So don't say to your kids, oh, dad owes me that child support again. He's late. Or don't say, yeah, what does mom say about that new guy? I heard she went out on a date. Why this is so hurtful to kids is that it forces the child into an adult role, and it creates loyalty conflicts, and it really burdens them with the responsibility of your emotions or communication. So instead, what could you do? Even though it's uncomfortable and it's hard, communicate directly with your co-parent. This is such a common problem, a common challenge, that there are specific apps that you could use, like Our Family Wizard or Best Interest to help minimize emotional contact. So you do your communication through one of these apps. And that could include scheduling on a calendar events. It could include sharing receipts if you are splitting costs for your children. It's just a really good way to communicate and reassure your child that they don't need to deliver messages, that the grown-ups will handle it. The second don't is, even though it might be tempting, don't speak negatively about the other parent. Don't say things like your father only cares about himself or your mother ruined this family, it's all her fault. Children see themselves as half of each parent. And biologically, that's true with their DNA. So when you insult your ex, your child unconsciously hears what the message is: half of me is bad. So instead, keep criticism out of earshot and out of their emotional space. If your child repeats negative comments, model calm and integrity. So, what you could say is, I know that's what you heard, and it's okay to feel confused. You're allowed to love both of us. So, the long term goal is to protect your child's identity and their sense of belonging, and they need to feel safe. Don't make your children choose sides. Don't criticize their relationship with their other parent. Don't reward loyalty. Oh, you're going to come spend time with me. I'm going to take you to the mall and buy you nice things. Why this really hurts kids is it fractures your child's attachment style. So they'll feel guilt and anxiety no matter what they choose, because there's really no good choice. You can tell your children you don't have to choose. Both parents love you and always will, and encourage them. And again, this is a big ask, this is hard. Encourage them to have a good time with the other parent. And although it's difficult, you will gain trust instead of losing it. One of the hardest situations, especially when you're doing your best to protect your kids' emotional health, is what do you do when a co-parent is speaking poorly about you? And this is a really challenging one. Don't react defensively. Your instinct will be to defend yourself, but fighting words with words keeps kids in the middle. So instead, take a breath and remind yourself, my integrity speaks louder than my ex's narrative. So children eventually will learn who's safe, consistent, and trustworthy through experience and not through explanations. When your ex is speaking poorly about you, do stay neutral and reassuring. So when your child says, Dad said you're selfish, or Dad said you're terrible, you could respond calmly. Again, take some deep breaths and say something like, I'm sorry you heard that. Sometimes adults say hurtful things when they're upset. I know that can be confusing. It's important to reassure them, but I want you to know you can love both of us. And that's such an important message. When you do that, you're modeling emotional maturity, and you've removed the burden of loyalty from your children's shoulders or from your child's shoulders. And don't mirror the behavior. Avoid phrases like, he's lying, that's not true. It might feel good in the moment to defend yourself, but it puts your child back into the conflict triangle. What could you say instead? You could say, yeah, that's one perspective. You'll form your own opinions as you grow, and I'm here if you ever want to talk about your feelings. And this is one of the most important things I think to remember, because we know divorce is so emotional. We know our kids are important to us, and they could sometimes be used as pawns, which is so detrimental. So remember that you can't always control the storm around your children, but you can be their calm within it. And that's so important that I want to say it again, that you can't always control the storm around your children, but you can be the calm within it. By focusing on your own reactions, by modeling integrity and keeping their hearts at the center, you protect them. And you're protecting them even when the other parent isn't or doesn't. We could feel really helpless, out of control, overwhelmed with this. But if you really go back to you being the calm within the storm for your children, that's so important. So, children don't need perfect parents. What they do need is strong, safe, predictable, and emotionally steady parents. Your kids really need a calm, strong parent. And what does that mean? That means that it's important to take care of you too. So we could go to a new slide, Judd. We're going to go to the taking care of yourself slide. So you can't pour from an empty cup. Self care is not selfish, it's actually survival. Healing takes time. So you're rebuilding your identity, your routines, your confidence, right? You're really trying to create your new normal. Some practical self care tools are schedule a divorce free zone. So schedule in times to rest, to laugh, to connect with friends. It's important to move your body because our bodies are so connected to our emotions. So it's important to move your body. You could walk, stretch, dance, work out, and then to release those thoughts from your mind to get them on paper. It's really beneficial to journal. Again, let's do a quick check-in. So I want you to think about on a scale of 1 to 10, how well are you caring for yourself right now? On a scale of 1 to 10, where is your self-care at? 1 being the lowest, 10 being the best. So think about that for a minute. And then I want you next to think about what's one small step you could take this week that you could raise that number just by 1 point. And if 1 point seems too overwhelming, half a point. So really focus on one small thing that you could do, which is so important in divorce, focusing on the small things so that you don't get overwhelmed. So divorce can really be a portal for personal growth, and it's an opportunity to rediscover who you are. Just to summarize and to end my part of the talk, I want to talk more about moving forward with purpose and hope. So the final exercise, I want you to take a deep breath and ask yourself, what's one word that captures how you want to feel 6 months from now? So, 6 months from now, what is one word that captures how you want to feel? Some words might be peace or freedom, confidence, calm, security, certainty, contentment, joy. You could use one of those words. You could come up with your own word. And I want you to hold on to that word because that's going to be your North Star. That's going to be your guiding force for decisions that you're making, for behaviors that you are doing, right? Behaviors you're showing people, thoughts you're thinking. So just remember that your story is not over. This chapter is about becoming the strongest, most authentic version of yourself. And again, with the right tools and the right support, healing's not only possible, but it's inevitable. So you don't have to do this alone. Divorce is hard, but we are here to help. People like Judd, people like myself, there is help out there for sure. There are going to be some bonus handouts that are going to be available, and it was so nice talking to you today.
Wow, thank you so much, Kim. That was fantastic. I was trying to write as many notes. I'm not in the process. I've been through it, but there was still some things that 10 years later, that I thought even myself I could
Yeah.
probably be doing just a little bit better. I like those things that you highlighted. Those are great tips for parents going through this process in that early stage. The thing like the apps and things that help the communication keeps everybody at bay a little bit.
Yeah,
Like
sometimes
Santa
the less
Claus
you
is watching,
communicate, the better you are. Yeah, yeah.
So those are all great things, right down to the personal care tips that you highlighted here were so valuable, and like the things like the journaling and things like that are wonderful tips. That pretty much concludes the presentation part of it. We did a pretty good job on time. We're going to stick around if there's some Q&A. Andrea's probably compiling some in the background here, and but yeah, we'll stick around here. You can raise your hand on the chat and we can unmute you if you want to ask that way, or there is a Q&A box. You can type in your question there. As we see some come through, I'll keep an eye on them. But yeah, Kim, we'll hang around for another
Yeah,
2 minutes
absolutely.
here, and
Sure.
yeah, get some Q&A. I'll go ahead and mute myself for now.
Okay.
I do have one question here. Great question is just how do you get a hold of Kim and I? Our information was on the slide there. We are going to be sending out replay. It's going to have all our information on there. I know we both use things like Calendly, so booking appointment is really super easy. All of us offer 30 minutes to an hour, ask any questions you want. But if you want my phone number, it's 248-273-8200. Call the office on Monday, and if you'd like to get a hold of me and pick my brain out about anything.
Yeah, and the same, I do offer 30-minute complimentary consultations, and you could reach me at 201-903-0240. We could talk about different ways that I help people. I run support groups, I work with people individually. So I'm always happy to talk to you to help any way I can.
Excellent. I just pinged Andrea. We don't have any Q&A right now. No specific questions, so we'll hang out a few more minutes.
And if you think of something, you could always email me at kim@kimberlylauracoaching.com. And if you're watching this as a replay, you could always reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions, to talk to you.
Yep, likewise.
I think we do have a question here.
Yeah.
It looks like, what point should you look for a mediator, before or after separation?
That's a great question. That is a really great question. Ideally, you want to do it in the beginning stages of it when you're going through all your discovery process, going through all the finances. For example, I have clients go through a huge financial affidavit, things like that. So really the process, that would be a good time to do it is if you're maybe at the beginning or just in the thick of it, that may be a good way to do it. Usually couples don't choose to go all the way to litigation. I think it just happens that way as a natural course. When arbitration, mediation, collaborative divorce, you've exhausted all options in the end in front of the judge. But yeah, I would start looking now sooner than later.
Yeah, I would agree.
Great question. Thank you. Which brings up, I'll just make a point that brings up a really great question with all the divorce professionals now of divorce coaches and certified divorce financial analysts and money lenders to help with the mortgage and all that sort of stuff. That's a pretty common question we get is like, when do you bring a CDFA in, or when do you bring in a divorce coach?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we say we ought to be the first or second phone call before or after the attorney. It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter which one, but yeah, we ought to be up there in the top 3 phone calls you make
Yeah.
when this
Yeah.
process starts. Yeah.
And the more clarity you have about your finances or about your emotions, the better prepared you are to make these decisions, like these big decisions. And we don't want to make them from fear or wanting to get them over with. We want to have clear, like you were talking about with the house. Can you really afford the house, or is it that you just want to stay in the neighborhood? These
Sure.
are really important decisions that you can't make without numbers and without sorting through your emotions. So, yeah, the sooner the better, I think.
Yep, for sure. Let's see if we have any more here. Andrea, have you seen any more questions?
This one might be more for Kim, but how do you set healthy boundaries without feeling guilty or selfish?
I think that goes back to the self-care. It's cliche, but I'm still going to say it. We have to put on our own oxygen masks before you put the mask on your kids or anybody else. Boundaries are really for you to protect you. And with healthy boundaries, they're really think about where that guilt is coming from. Is it that you have been trained to be a people pleaser? Is it that you don't want to disappoint people? So really getting at the root of what does the boundary mean to you? Why are you creating the boundary, and what is the benefit? And I think, again, if you have clarity on that, then it's harder to have that guilt.
Okay, and it looks like we have one more. Can you attend second Saturday workshops out of state if there are none available in your state?
Yes, great question. Absolutely. My my motivation to become a second Saturday leader was that we didn't have any leaders in my area. But yes, all across, you can attend them anywhere you want to, even if you have to go out of state. Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And of course, the virtual seminars too are always available.
Yeah, and with online virtual Zooms, all of this stuff, I know I can work across state lines. So it's nice because I'm in New Jersey right now and we're talking and we're I don't know how many hundreds of miles away, but it's nice that we have virtual options. So you don't have to be necessarily in person to work together or to attend a second Saturday.
Sure. I will say the in-person seminars are in much more depth. Typically those are 4 hours long because we
Mm.
bring in everybody. We bring in professionals from all emotional aspects, financial aspects, legal aspects. So yeah, but they are a lot more in depth, and I would definitely encourage anyone if they have the opportunity to get to one
Mhm.
in their area. Secondsaturday.com, find a workshop is right up there. Just punch in your zip code and see what's close by. Great questions. Andrea, any more filtering in?
Looks like that's it for now. But of course, if anyone has anything else to ask, please put it in the chat and we'll get that read out.
And we know how it goes. You're gonna get off the meeting, go, oh, I know what question I wanted to ask them. Happens every time. So we're easy to get hold of if you miss your question. But I think we'll conclude things there. If we don't have any more questions, we'll wrap things up on this Saturday morning. I can't thank you all enough on my behalf and Kim's behalf. We can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us today. This is a hard process. If you're going through it, our hearts are with you. We're here to help. You do not have to do it alone. And community is probably one of the biggest assets when this whole process is to have people that
Mhm.
that understand in your circle and things like that. Kim, thank you so much for sharing your time today
Thank you so
and
much.
being a guest. The material you talked about today was of massive value still to me even this day. I wrote a few things down that I know I still would like to maybe practice and take into consideration. It's been great. Our next workshop will be, Andrea, I don't know the date, but it will be the second Saturday in November. It's the easiest way, so we don't have to remember the dates. And that will be here in Birmingham. That will be in person. Today's presentation was recorded, so you will all be receiving the recording of today's presentation as well in your inbox. My guess is probably sometime Monday or Tuesday. And certainly feel free to pass that recording along. If you know anybody that's going through this process or anything like that, by all means, second Saturday and our workshops and the resources are a great first step. With that said, Andrea, thank you so much too for making things run so darn smoothly today. You did a wonderful job and getting this whole thing set up with Kim and I to do this today. And we wish you all well on your journey. We're here to help and support you in any way we can. And until then, we will see you in November on the second Saturday. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Bye.